everyone, a very good evening. You're watching The Money Show on ET Now. I'm Mubina Kapasi. This is the show where we talk about your personal finances, ensure that your financial planning is going in the right direction, and check in on your mutual fund portfolio. Once again, make sure that you are on the path of long-term wealth creation or to achieve your financial goals. So let's tell you what we have lined up on today's episode of The Money Show. It's quite an action-packed one, we assure you, as we always do. And of course, we'll be answering some questions and queries as well that you guys have sent in to us. So the very first topic that we'll be discussing is around HNI investing. You know, there are certain traits of an HNI or a high net worth individual that retail non-HNI investors could adopt, could, in some way really imbibe. But there are certain qualities and certain methodologies of HNI investing that non-HNI retail investors must stay away from. Why? Well, we'll explain that to you in just moments from now, and of course get you all the lessons of investing that HNIs usually adopt. Later on the show, we'll be discussing the new Draft Model Tenancy Act. What are the provisions? How will it change the lives of landlords as well as tenants? Interestingly, there will be now a rent authority as well who will be established. Of course, it's a draft law, but we'll go through that. That will sort of prepare you for what's coming in the fairly near future. So that's what we have lined up on today's episode of The Money Show. And as always, let me remind all our viewers, our emails are monitored and we will be taking on board any question or query you receive. The email address, of course, remains the same, themoneyshow@etnow.tv. You can send in any question or query you may have with respect to handling your personal finances, handling of your mutual fund portfolio, any queries you may be having, and we will take up those questions right here live every day at 5 p.m. So without any further ado, let's bring on board our very first guest, Raj Mohan Krishnan. He's the principal founder and MD of the Entrust Family Office. Mr. Krishnan, a pleasure having you with us today on ET Now. Thank you so much for taking out time to talk to us. To start off with, let me introduce a little bit about Mr. Krishnan as well to our viewers. Entrust Family is a boutique multi-family office headquartered in Bengaluru, but it has branches across the major cities in India. It's a SEBI-registered investment advisory firm and currently handling an AUM worth close to 10,000 crore rupees. So, Mr. Krishnan, thank you once again for taking out time. To start with, you managed to have HNIs of the Forbes top 100 families. You help them invest in realty. You help them invest in realty, in equity shares, and managing other daily legal responsibilities. So you are constantly aware of what the HNI expects, how they invest, of course, the characteristics as well of your HNI investor. Let's first talk about the profile of your HNI investor, their incomes, their habits, and most importantly, their risk-taking ability.
Thank you, Mabina, for having me over. In fact, it's a pleasure to be here talking to you. And when you asked this question regarding the risk-taking ability of HNIs, every HNI is unique in a respect because every investor has got their own risk-taking capacity, their liquidity requirements, their identity is totally different in terms of what is the kind of investments they would like to make. And what we do is, in a very simple way, we take them through a risk profiler. And there's a very, very simple questionnaire which we take them through. And they'll have to answer a few questions. And by end of the, answering all the questions, you will be able to ascertain what is the kind of risk the HNI is able to take in his portfolio investing. And mostly, majority of the times, the questionnaire comes out very, very clearly in terms of identifying the risk appetite, and the clients also agree to what they've answered in terms of the questions. and thereby the risk-taking ability is ascertained. And the portfolio is constructed based on what is the kind of risk they're able to take.
Okay, so it's obviously not a very simple answer. It's not like, you ask an individual that, okay, what's your risk-taking ability? And then, that person just answers whatever, is the answer at the moment. There's, of course, a carefully constructed questionnaire. It's an entire long process. And, I think every individual should sort of introspect on that before they answer this question for themselves. But, largely, I would assume that, as an HNI, you have more income, so relatively, you could afford perhaps to take a little more risk. However, we'll talk about what not to take forward when an HNI invests. But let's first talk about some investing lessons from HNIs. Mr. Krishnan, typically, what does an HNI tell you about their investments, about their investment goals, which are adaptable by a non-HNI retail investor as well?
So I would classify this as a few points, which every investor will have to keep it in mind before he gets into investing. I would say the first point is they'll have to follow an asset allocation, which means that if I have 100 rupees, how much of that money will go into equities? How much of money which can go into fixed income, which can be safe and secure, and how much of that can go into investing into gold or investing into commodities or like that, vice versa. But typically, if once you've done your asset allocation, you know exactly where your money is going to go. You're prepared for it. And then start scouting around for investment opportunities. And so typically what happens is the market is cluttered with very many investments. So as it is cluttered, we always advise, and HNIs, what they do is they identify certain investments which they believe has got good track record, consistent performance, and have spanned over a long period of time delivering good performances. So once that is done, and then the HNIs start investing. So any investor will have to follow this very religiously in terms of investing. The second one is always look for quality in terms of investing. Buy good quality, whether it's mutual funds, whether it's stocks. If it's stocks, buy very strong businesses, good balance sheets, completely debt-free companies. So there are very many parameters which one looks out for when you identify buying stocks. Same way, when you buy mutual funds, very similar, the kind of fund manager track record, what is the kind of performance he is given over a long period of time, whether the fund manager has stayed through with a particular fund for quite some time, how consistent the fund manager is in terms of his investing style. These are very important in terms of when they look for investment opportunities. The third point, I would say most important, is look out for expenses, because every fund, whenever you look to investing, expenses can eat away most of your returns. So you should really, and particularly these times when the market is not doing well. Fortunately for us, last 6 months market has been on the rise, but there are times when the market is not doing well, and that time the expenses matters a lot. So people will have to really focus on what is the kind of expenses we pay to manage this money, and over the long term it can be really meaningful. The fourth point, which is again it's very important, is liquidity. See what happens, most of the investors, they just go and invest into long-term investments. Long-term is good. Always we believe long-term is extremely good, but there are investments which spans over 5 years, 7 years, 9 years, and these kind of investments can really lock you in. And exactly when you need the money and when you see some opportunities in the market, you will not be able to exit. And in between, if you observe, the the portfolio or the product is not performing well, you can't take corrective measures. So what happens is you get stuck. So liquidity is extremely important while investing. The fifth point, what I would say is people should not be carried away by exuberance. Like typically, just the situation why what we are right now, the markets are in a frenzy. There's a lot of liquidity which is driving the markets. You see every day market is touching new highs. So what happens? So people should not get carried away and just go ahead and invest, because every day when you see the screens, the market is going up. The fear of missing out should not be there. And they should be extremely cautious, wait on the sidelines, look for opportunities, look for downturns to invest. Because what happens is the difference between a successful investor and an also-ran investor is, I agree, you can't time the markets, but definitely you can look out for opportunities. When is the right time to invest? Of course, I was talking to you about identifying good fund managers. It's extremely important to look for long track record and probably understand and look at fund managers who understand assets, their asset class as well, whether it's fixed income, whether it's equity, whether it's REITs. Just look at any fund manager. You'll have to qualify him by the kind of performance. Then lastly, I would say, in terms of research is something that's very important. Either the investor will have to do research or approach an advisor, an investment advisor, and look out and gain research information before they build conviction in terms of any opportunity. Once they build conviction, then they'll have to start investing. So you'll have to size it. So basically what happens is, if you identify an opportunity and if you believe that this opportunity is good, you'll have to allocate a sizable sum of money in terms of investing. You can't put a kind of a very minuscule number which will not move the needle in terms of portfolio returns. So that is also very important. So HNIs look for all these opportunities, and as advisors, we also advise the HNIs to look at these kind of opportunities, options before getting into any investing. Hope I'm clear in terms of I've made myself clear in terms of what can an investor really look at while looking at investments.
You know, there's one characteristic we see in many investors. They look at some big market investor of Dalal Street, like say, a Rakesh Jhunjhunwala or anybody in that league, Ramesh Damani, Radhakishan Damani, what have you. And if they see that, okay, Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala or Mr. Damani has picked up shares in a particular stock, then most of these retail investors start chatting about it, and then they say, okay, you know what, maybe even I'll purchase these shares. However, do you think that's wise? I mean, what do you think of this whole aping the rich investor method that many retail investors do tend to copy?
I would say, see, every investor has got a very unique risk profile. I would not recommend anybody to follow any other investor, because I have a very, very unique investment style and also risk profile. I can't take the same risk as Mr. Jhunjhunwala takes or Mr. Damani takes in terms of investing. So I'll have to look into my investing style, my risk profile, and tailor-make the investments according to the kind of a risk what I can take. And typically, what happens is it depends on my liquidity requirements. What is the kind of income what I need from the portfolio on a regular basis? Whether I can really lock in, whether I can take chances in the portfolio. Suppose, for example, when I invest and probably the market tanks or a particular stock or a particular mutual fund does not do well for continuously 1 year or 2 years, will I be able to stomach the losses? Will I be able to take those losses? That is very, very important when an investor will considers investing. So I would not definitely advise investors to look into others, anybody else for that matter. Why take Mr. Jhunjhunwala, Mr. Damani, any investor for that matter? I will have to look at myself, internalize my risk profile, and choose what is the kind of investing which I can do. The next is the reaction which one makes, every investor makes to a particular situation is very unique. Just look at a situation like, for example, when the COVID pandemic struck, there were a lot of investors who panicked, who got out of equity mutual funds, who got out of stocks. They said, saying that we can't take this kind of a risk. But if they had sustained, if they had, continued, they would have been laughing away to the bank. So typically what happens is these reactions differ from investor to investor. So I can't copy or I can't look at other investors and construct the portfolio like others. The third one is, so basically risk appetite and objectives has to be understood very carefully before designing the portfolio. And that is where a role of an advisor becomes very important. As an investment advisor, so every investor will have to have a good advisor who will advise them, who will handhold them, and who will also, make sure that the investor does not make mistakes and panic during these kind of situations. So an advisor's role in these kind of situations becomes extremely critical, I would say.
All right. Okay, well, there you have it. That's everything to know about investing. What you should ape, what you should not ape, of course, as well, is an extremely important question that you must ask yourself. Okay, let's do one thing now. Let's take on board some questions and queries we've received from our viewers. And like I mentioned before, you as well can connect with Mr. Krishnan by writing in on any financial planning or investment query you may have on The Money Show at etnow.tv. Okay, without any further ado, let's kickstart our session for questions and queries. And we have our very first question that's coming in from Jahan. It's a very interesting question. Jahan asks about ELSS, or Equity Linked Savings Scheme. Now, she says that ELSS schemes have not really done very well, and she's also pointing out certain funds like the Nippon Tax Saver, the Franklin India Tax Shield. These have not done well. So her question is, are ELSS schemes a good tax saving option? Mr. Krishnan, what do you think of this category of Section 80C investments versus maybe the other categories like a PPF or a 5-year bank fixed deposit?
Without taking any names, I would just go deep dive into ELSS. So first of all, equity as an asset class carries risk, and which we all know. And you mentioned about PPF and you mentioned about fixed deposits. A PPF or a fixed deposit is giving you about 7.5% return. Whereas even today, an equity investment in the long run, anywhere between 3 to 5 years, has given more than 10% return post-tax. So definitely ELSS is a great form of investment. There's no doubts about it. And see, the most important thing is ELSS has got a 3-year lock-in. So when you invest, you are forced to take a 3-year view or more than a 3-year view when you're investing in ELSS. So there could be market cycles when an ELSS does not perform. It doesn't mean that ELSS on the whole is not a great option. And if you look at the last about 15, 20 years, ELSS have always yielded handsome returns. And it's a great tax saving vehicle, and also has given stupendous returns. Some of the funds have given stupendous returns. So I would definitely advise and recommend people to look at ELSS vis-a-vis any other investments like fixed deposits or the PPF. And see, the most important thing is equities. We need to have patience, because investing in equities is not something where you can expect monthly returns or fixed returns or something like that. It depends on various market vagaries and based on various parameters. And these funds, and typically every equity mutual fund, whether it's in ELSS or an equity mutual fund, these are constructed with a clear long-term basis in mind. So I would definitely answer Jahan, saying that ask him to continue with equity ELSS mutual funds and not look for other opportunities. I'm sure these funds will perform really well in the long run.
Okay, so Mr. Krishnan advises stay put with ELSS. Any which ways there's a lock-in of 3 years, for you to avail the tax benefits. And he's confident that, in the long term, as is usually the case with equity mutual funds, these category of funds as well will do well. Another very interesting question from Santu Mundar. If the market goes through a sustained rally, which by the way is what we are seeing right now, the lump sum investor will gain more than the one who staggers his or her investments across several months. The SIP investor will lose if the market rises sharply and then corrects. So in that case, should I stop my SIP, sit on cash and wait for the fall? A very valid question. When the market is down, the SIP investor does tend to gain because he or she picks up more units at a lower cost. But obviously, when the market is up, their existing investments are, maybe doing well, but then they're also picking up units at a very high price. What do you think of this, Mr. Krishnan? Should an SIP investor really keep pausing and continuing their SIPs depending on how the market is moving?
So let me, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting question. But at the same time, I would say lump sum investing and SIP investing are two different buckets and investing in any investor's portfolio. So you can't really compare lump sum investing to SIP investing. SIP investing is mainly done in terms of, instead of timing the markets, long-term averaging works out in a systematic investment plan. And it's staggered across many months, many years. And some of the investors actually use SIP as a tool for achieving certain financial objectives. It could be children's education, or it could be a child's marriage, or it could be anything for that matter. Lump sum investing, of course, it's very attractive at some point of times. And when the markets are moving like this, everyone is getting tempted to probably look at higher returns. But lump sum investing is not as easy as a systematic investment plan, because in these markets, if you do lump sum investing, what happens at Nifty being where it is, or the Sensex being where it is? If you invest today and market tanks, you will have to wait for another, probably, I don't know how much time to recover these monies. But whereas an SIP would have not tanked as much as kind of a lump sum investing. So it's a very, very different cup of tea when you're looking at either the SIP investing and lump sum investing. So I would say do both. But at the same time, don't stop your SIPs. SIP, let it continue, because always long-term averaging works really well in terms of every investment. And particularly equity investments works extremely well in long-term averaging. It will have catch-up, because sometimes you will feel really markets have not done well, your investments have not performed well. But I'm sure that over a long term, like I said earlier, these investments will catch up and returns will be commensurate. But as you're aware, the lump sum investing has to be really done with more care and attention, and maybe a little bit of timing, though you can't do exact timing of the markets, but you'll have to wait for an opportune time when there is real fear in the markets and probably invest. You can't really jump into the bandwagon just because markets are going up and invest. Maybe it may not be the right time, you never know.
Mr. Krishnan, really appreciate you joining us today on ET Now. Thank you so much for taking out time, speaking to all our viewers, answering their questions and queries. Folks, you can catch this entire interview, of course, on ET Now's YouTube channel. And do keep writing in to us on the Money Show at etnow.tv. We'll definitely take up your queries in the days and weeks to come. And on that note, we'll take a very short break. Don't go anywhere.